reflecting on 2016 presidential elections. Though there are many names by which the Church is known, perhaps the most famous name is the one used in the Nicene Creed or Havadamk, which we recite every Sunday. One holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Each of these words, in its fullness, is the subject of many deep and thoughtful theological articles and books. The word Catholic means universal, which transcends national, racial, and cultural boundaries. It can and does imply the outlook of the Church toward the created world and toward human affairs, which cannot be limited to the understanding that restricts the interests and concerns of the Church to a narrowly defined religious sphere. The Church, throughout its history, has both used and encouraged the arts, culture, and education, and has addressed the whole range of social and public phenomena. The Armenian Church, in particular, has often taken a leadership role in the absence of independence and Armenian government. As a general principle, the Church has held a position on the ideal of church and state relations, which may be called the principle of synergy. It is to be distinguished from a sharp division of church and state on the one hand, and a total fusion of church and state on the other hand. It recognizes and advocates a clear demarcation between church and state, while calling for a cooperative relationship between the two. Today we live in the United States of America, and we have what we have. Church and state are separate, and we ought to respect that. Having said that, I find it appropriate for me as an Armenian clergyman who lives and serves in the United States of America to share my thoughts about what's happening in our current day politics. These are simply my personal thoughts and reflections, and in no way do they represent the views of the Armenian Church and or our diocese as such. My family and I had the privilege this past weekend to go to Washington, D.C. and have a public and then a private tour of the White House. We are blessed to have a dear friend who is on the White House staff and has permission to give a tour of the West Wing of the White House, which normally isn't open to the general public. It was one of the most astonishing experiences to see the Oval Office up close and many historic rooms of the White House, to see the press briefing room, the Rose Garden, and the West Colonnade, also known as the 45-second commute. I couldn't believe we stood right at the doors of the Situation Room, where many important decisions are made. It was simply an amazing and memorable experience to walk in the hallways and be in the rooms where great presidents like Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, or Theodore Roosevelt lived, had gatherings, and made important decisions for this country. Our two daughters, Datev and Mane, were especially excited to see the things that they read about in books. Why am I telling all of this? Well, as we all know by now, we are about to make a very important decision for our country. On November 8, millions of Americans will cast their votes for the next president of the United States of America. I've been trying my best not to get involved in any political discussions or debates. Not because I want to follow the commonly known rule, do not speak about religion, money, and politics, but simply because I think that the way the two candidates have been running their campaigns is not acceptable for me, and I'm sure for many of you as well. When I was standing a few feet away from the president's desk and his chair, I couldn't help but to imagine both candidates sitting at that desk. I'm not necessarily saying the president's desk or chair has an extraordinary power. However, I do believe it carries so much weight and responsibility that everyone who runs for the president's office has to have a clear moral and political understanding of the great and humbling responsibility that comes with the presidency. I do think that the situation in which we are right now is a very humbling experience for the American people and a wake-up call for all of us. We have two candidates that run for the president's office, but the majority of American people don't feel 100% comfortable and confident with either. I'm not necessarily in favor or oppose one or the other, but I do have minimum expectations for each of the candidates to be morally fit for president's office. The political ads and the name calling between the two candidates and bashing each other with various accusations is very bothersome. It took me 5 minutes watching the debate on Wednesday night to feel very uncomfortable, to the point that I felt I'm losing my peace. It is inevitable. One of them will be the next president. So, what can we do? First and foremost, we have to teach and educate our children, as well as remind ourselves that this is not normal. It is not okay to feel so concerned that we keep our children away from the news and from the TV and from all kinds of political debates, because you never know what will come out from their mouth the next second. Secondly, we have to really pray about this election so that everything goes peacefully and whoever takes over the office will do it with complete understanding of the responsibilities and duties that come with the presidency. Also, let's hope that the losing candidate accepts the reality with dignity and shows his or her full support to the president-elect. I think it was Stevenson who said after he lost the election, "It hurts too much to laugh, but I'm too old to cry." I urge you all to give General Eisenhower the support he will need to carry out the great tasks that lie before him. I pledge him mine. We vote as many, but we pray as one. Today more than ever, we have to pray as one, so this election does not cause any violence or unhealthy divisions. It is not worth breaking relationships or hurting someone both physically and emotionally over the political differences you might have. This is an opportunity for us to realize that we cannot and should not rely on ourselves or on the president and his or her abilities alone. God is the true king. He rules over all the nations. He is the one from whom comes all the wisdom, knowledge to lead this country. St. Paul writes, "But this happened that we might not rely on ourselves alone, but on God who raises the dead." Let us all be peaceful. Pray for this country, for the upcoming election, and for the candidates to continue their campaigns with high morals, wisdom, and dignity. And as for us, let us follow the encouragement by St. Paul. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace. May God continue to bless you.